Hey, this is the new two-door Bronco plate. This is to mount your 5, 10, or 15-pound power tank in the back of your two-door Bronco. It will also work with our 5-pound propane bracket, and we have a MOLLE system, so you can put a small pouch here or integrate one of our quick-release fire extinguisher brackets. All right, so we'll go over what's included in the Bronco plate kit. So you have your main plate here. Your power tank gets installed in these holes, and you have MOLLE panels and pre-drilled slots for your fire extinguisher bracket. You have your top plate and 2 feet. This one goes towards the front of the vehicle, and this one goes towards the rear of the vehicle. Hardware, you have 6 of these 3/8 bolts, washers, and flange nuts. You have 2 of these long bolts, 2 black spacers, and 5 of these short bolts, and they include 5 nuts and 5 washers. As far as tools you'll need your Bronco toolkit. We're going to be using the small socket, the T50, and we'll go ahead and just use this socket wrench out of there. You'll also need a 1/2-inch wrench, 9/16 wrench, 7/32 Allen wrench, and a T40 Torx wrench. Additionally, a trim tool, screwdriver. We're just pulling up the little plastic trim. And then optionally, you'll need a 3/4 inch drill bit. I'm going to use a step drill bit. You can use a 3/4 inch drill bit, Dremel, knife to pull it out. It's just plastic, real simple. And if you don't want to modify it, you don't have to. We'll get to that in a second. Additionally, I'm going to be installing a fire extinguisher bracket to my Bronco plate. So you'll need the fire extinguisher bracket kit. All the hardware that you need is included in here. I'm going to put on this little MOLLE pouch. It's a water bottle holder, but I'm going to use it for screwdrivers and crescent wrenches, just so they're really quick to grab when I need them. To install the fire extinguisher bracket, you'll need a 5/16 nut driver, 7/16 wrench, and a 5/32 Allen wrench. So first we're going to assemble the Bronco plate, get everything mounted on it, and then it goes into the vehicle. Real simple. All right, so we're going to install all the parts onto our main Bronco plate. So top plate will go in behind, just like this, and this will all be using these short bolts. This piece goes tall side up. Hey, Tyler from the future here with a quick update. We've since made a slight revision to our instructions. Originally we had this piece going behind the plate, and this goes toward the seat. Seat would be right here. But what happens is you can't lift the flap to get to the cargo underneath your floor. So we've made a small correction. Instead of going behind, we're going to put this in front of the plate here. And instead of putting the head this way, we're going to put the head of the bolt towards the back of the plate. So I'm going to do that right now, and we'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Alright, so just that little change will give you enough space to be able to open that flap. And here's what it looks like. The rest of the instructions in the video are exactly the same. So back to that. Behind, again, all of this is behind. And this foot goes short side up. So just like that. Alright, so let's get started. We're going to use the 1/2-inch wrench and a T40 to get all this short hardware in. So just like that. I'm going to put the washer on the outside. right, so that's what it should look like when it's done. You have your 2 feet here, and on the back you can see all the plates, all the small parts attached to the back of the plate. All right, we're going to add the super bracket to the Bronco plate. And whether you're mounting a 5-pound, 10-pound, or 15-pound power tank, the steps are the same. You're going to want to start by lining up the bottom holes, and the rest will follow. You can use the standard super bracket, or this will also work with our Comp 2 bracket with our double strap super bracket. And you're going to use the 9/16 hardware. Just like before, I'm going to put the washer on this bolt and put the nut in from the back. One thing also to mention is you want, for a 5-pound and a 10-pound power tank, you want the latch towards the MOLLE panel coming over here. It's for clearance with the rear seat. If you're mounting a 15-pound power tank, the rear seat is not going to clear anyway, so it does make sense to put the latch on this side. That way you have a little more space on this panel to mount accessories. All right, and then one other thing I'm going to do for 10 and 15-pound power tank installs, you want to remove this rubber trim, and that way the boot sits above this lip. And I'll show you how once we get the power tank in. Now, real quick, while I have it kind of out of the vehicle, I'm going to put on my little MOLLE bag and my fire extinguisher bracket. So we try to make our MOLLE panel, even though it's supposed to be standard, there's not really. Everyone kind of does their own thing, so even this bag is not MOLLE compatible, but we're hoping that with our pattern that it's adaptable to the most amount of accessories. And then you want to make sure that when you have your bag or whatever accessory you have here, that you can still open and close the latch. So this one just barely clears. Fortunately, this is flexible. So just be cognizant of that. So now the fire extinguisher bracket. Again, this is optional when you buy your power plate, or you can add it later. Mounts a fire extinguisher. You can also mount a Pro Eagle jack, a power shot. So you're going to take this all apart, and the piece with the pin down here is what goes onto the plate. And you just take your hardware. This is where the 5/32 and the 7/16 come into play. And you can go up high or down low. I like higher, it's easier to access. And then before you cinch this tight, you actually take your leash, and this will go through the bolt behind the bracket. So let me take it out. So it's going to look like this. These are also flange nuts, so you may not need your 1/2-inch wrench. I don't here. Make sure that the leash isn't being pinched, and you do that by just seeing that it's loose. It goes up and down, left to right. Perfect. All right, next you're going to take your fire extinguisher or your power shot. This is a 2.5-pound fire extinguisher. It doesn't have to be an Amerex, could be any brand. From what we've seen, they're all pretty much the same diameter. Take the large roll bar clamps, and then when you attach your bracket to it, make sure the open hook is on the bottom. That's what grips into the pin. Okay, and then just preset the hose clamps. Get it through. You want this really tight so it doesn't come loose. And it does fit here, but we'll leave it off for now for the install, make it easier. So I'll just set that aside. Okay, now we're ready to go into the Bronco. All right. I'm going to put the rear seat down. You don't need to, it's just gonna make it easier to see. So first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take off these plastic trim pieces. They have a lasso on the cover. And then you wanna go from the pointy end. That's the part that actually flexes, so that way you don't ruin the trim. Just get a trim tool or a screwdriver or something. So now we get our Bronco tools. This is the 10 mil socket. It doesn't have to be the Bronco one, could be any one. And then you have basically the outermost screws, the one towards the front of the vehicle and the one towards the rearmost are gonna be removed. So I got those out. I'm gonna take the 10 millimeter and swap out for the T50. And I'm gonna take the middle two bolts holding the hardtop in out. So you have one hidden behind here. You can leave that one in, but the two closest to it are coming out. Right, so these are the trim pieces that were removed in the earlier step. They're identical, so they can be reversed front to back. Don't worry about mixing them up. What we're gonna do is put the spacer here over this bolt, and the plate is gonna sit right on the spacer, metal to metal. So we'll have to drill out a spot on these trim pieces. If you don't want to modify these at all, you can just put them in the glove box, save them, and reuse them later if you ever decide to take your Bronco plate out. And it'll just look like this, no problems there. But we're gonna use the template provided in our kit, drill these out, and that way we can get the bolt through. All right, so now we're gonna get to cutting our template. This is the last page of your printed instructions, or you can download it separately. We're just gonna cut this out and use this on our two trim pieces. I have one already in the vise. All right, and I'm gonna tape it to the top of my trim piece. And another note, when you remove the trim pieces, they are the same front to back, but as soon as you modify them, you have a front and a rear. So make sure you remember which one's which. Okay, so you don't have to get it cut as perfect as I do. As long as you get this bottom three sides, you can match it there. And then I'm gonna take a pick, but you can use a punch or even a sharp screwdriver or anything. Just get the center. I'm just marking the center. Make sure that shows through. Yeah, it's hard to see on the camera, but it's there. So I'm gonna take this off. And now, start with this one. All right, so now we drill this hole out to 3/4. I'm gonna use a step bit, but you can also use a drill bit, and if you don't have a 3/4, I doubt most of you do, you can use like a Dremel or a rotary tool to kind of work it out. Just trace the 3/4 hole from your template onto here. All right, so I have my hole drilled out to 3/4, nice and clean. I'm gonna take some masking tape and just make an R on here. That way I remember that this is the rear versus the front. We do the front, same manner. The hole's just in a slightly different location, and then we'll bring it back to the Bronco. All right, so here's our trim pieces. Now there is a front and rear. The rear has a larger gap, and the front has a smaller gap. So we're gonna put these down first, and then this spacer should sit right inside. Go. Right there, perfect. Okay, and now we get our plate. Okay, get it around the seat belt. And then we're gonna want to get our Bronco plate in between the plastic from the hardtop and the metal from the tub. So it should just slide in like that. And if you need to, you can remove this plate, this bolt in the rear. If you need the space, you shouldn't need to. And just slide that in there. And then you want to get the bottom roughly lined up over the spacers. All right, I'm gonna get my stock hardtop bolts, and we're just gonna get these in hand tight. So line up the plate and just get it loosely in. Good. And, all right, barely finger tight. Good. Okay. Now we get our long bolts, and these go through the plate, through the spacer, into the stock threaded location. And you're going to use the T40 Torx wrench to get these in. Again, make sure everything's loose, and then we'll do a final tightening once all the bolts are in and we're happy with the location. All right, final tightening. Alrighty. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning was you'll need a 10 mil wrench, and that's to tighten your lock nut on your bracket. So let's get the power tank in here. Now with a 10 pound, there is only one orientation. It needs to go straight back, just like that. And you see how the bottom of the bracket grabs underneath the lip of the boot. Now we're gonna make sure our latch is adjusted properly. So just like that, gets tight at the end, not tight enough. So I'm gonna go in a couple turns. Let's try it now. That feels good. So basically, you wanna have it tighten up right about here. I'm actually gonna go one more turn in. Yep. So when the latch is about 90 is when you want it to start to feel tight. Just like that. Great. Okay, so now that that's adjusted, I want to make sure my lock nut is tight. And that's with the 10 mil. And this prevents it from shaking loose when you're on the trail. All right, that's in. Fire extinguisher bracket goes here. And then with any fire extinguisher mount, it's really important to practice with it. Make sure it's in a good spot. Make sure that when you grab it, your hands are where you want them to be, so you're not losing any second in an emergency. So right here, you just pull it here, and I can pull the pin and go. So I might adjust this a little bit, but for the most part, it's sitting good. Put that back. Everything's gonna clear the tailgate. I'll show you how it looks with the seat up. I mean, you see we have millimeter of clearance behind the seat, and we want to maximize this position, give you as much space and usability as we could while keeping a super strong bracket. So you see this is super solid, not going anywhere. Same with the fire extinguisher bracket. And you're done. All right, well, that's the Bronco plate for a two-door Bronco. We also have a four-door Bronco mount and lots of other vehicle mounts. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, send us an email, or give us a call, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.